Hello, my name is Matthew, and here is Daphne. And I read Homage to Catalonia by George Orwell. This is my cover, the cover of my edition. I read this with my girlfriend, and in fact, all these Spanish books that I'm planning on reading and have been reading, um, we've been reading together, which is just so much fun. And she's a much better reader than I am, and so we've been having uh, terrific, really interesting conversations. And this isn't um, a Spanish book by a Spanish writer. Instead, this is Orwell coming into the world of Spain as an outsider, looking in and joining in. So this is set at the beginning of the 20th century, um, and Homage to Catalonia is Orwell's account, his real life experience joining a militia during the Spanish Revolution or the Spanish Civil War, fighting fascism. And it's absolutely fascinating. Orwell um, is an amazing writer. He's one of my favorite writers of the 20th century. Um, I often think his nonfiction, his personal accounts are much more interesting than his fictional work, and I love his novels. So Orwell's sent to Spain to uh, to be a journalist, to write a few articles, report on what's going on, and he quickly joins a militia to fight the fascists. And we as a reader, we learn as the story goes on, it wasn't just two sides, good and evil, battling. Instead, there were all of these factions. The front was a fractious um, organization, or just broken up into all these different parts, and it is very complicated. Orwell talks about how um, the how the political aspect of all of this is crucial to understanding what was going on. But he just joins this militia, not realizing this, and also being in some ways naive, thinking that he's just joining the militia and he's going to be fighting the fascists. And as he's there, learning that there's this complicated machinery in the background, and there's actually all these different sects, and they're fighting with each other, and it's not just this unified front uh, battling evil. There's all these acronyms and abbreviations of each different kind of party and militia. And uh, Orwell, um, as the writer of the book, was mindful of this, and actually separates out the political aspects um, that were so critical into separate chapters that are um, uh, distinct from his personal tellings, his real life experience, being on the ground. Um, he even makes a point in one of the beginnings of one of the chapters to say that he separated it, and that if you're not quite interested in the political aspect of um, the overarching story of what was going on, you could skip it just to read the reportage parts, his first-hand account. Um, the political aspect of it is too complicated for me to be able to talk about in any sort of intelligible way. I'd have to read a whole lot more and understand it a whole lot more, and get um, different perspectives outside of Orwell to be able to speak knowledgeably. His personal account, though, is just so interesting. He just goes down, he goes to Spain and just joins this militia, and he's fairly welcomed in. He talks about the generosity of the Spanish people, and he gives all of these examples. Um, One example that I liked was with a Spanish militiaman. If you ask for a cigarette, they'll be shoving a whole pack of cigarettes in your hand. So it's always more. If you ask for something, the Spanish generosity is giving you more than what you're asking for. And at the beginning, when he joins this militia, you quickly realize how disorganized and sparse the supplies are. It's this band of it seems like civilians that are just trying to drum up a military, and instead of this idea of a huge organized military force where everyone's in lines and rows, and ammunition is being issued out. And instead, we have this militia that don't really have uniforms. The uniforms are not uniform. People are wearing different outfits and patching things together and having slightly different colorings. Orwell was alarmed early on in his training when there was no handling of guns. To learn, he learns there were no guns to be had. So it's this militia that doesn't even have guns. And when he finally gets down into the trenches, the guns that are issued are pitiful. They are 10, 20 years old, 30 years old. They're used. They're in disrepair. They have rust on them. That they don't work. They come from. Some are Spanish guns, but some are French, and some are English. The best guns were German. And the same thing with the ammunition. It's just sort of gathering any sort of ammunition that they can find. No one knows how to operate them. The guns don't reliably work. And then we spend time in the trenches. It's Orwell during trench warfare, spending time with all of these interesting characters that we meet. So many of them, he has these single experiences with, and even early on in the novel, there are these moments where he'll meet someone that was memorable, and they went off on their with the rest of their life, and he never saw them again, never met them again, didn't know their fate. It's often early in the novel, or in the book, it's described how when there is battling going on, when there's fighting and shooting, hardly anyone's actually getting hurt or shot. Everyone has such terrible aim that the guns don't work. They're shooting off into nowhere. But people are getting hit, and people are being mortally wounded, fatally shot. And it puts into perspective some of the individuals that he meets that he'll have one brief encounter with, and to think, what was that person's story? Did they live to tell another, whatever the phrase is, did they live another day, or not? The essentials, the way of living, how you spend your time in these trenches is so viscerally described. Things like firewood, getting kindling to stay warm. It's sunny Spain, but they're up in the mountains, and it is cold. It's frigid and it's damp. During the winters, they're sleeping in mud and filth, constantly wet and cold. The landscape has um, been ransacked for supplies and food and firewood. Both sides, the other side of the trench, um, or on the other side of the hill, they're doing the same thing. They're all scavenging around, shooting at each other. They're all crawling on their bellies to find little bits of food to eat. The water's brought up by these mules. Describes the water having the transparency of milk, and so it's firewood and food and cigarettes, the tobacco. They talk about he talks about the daily ration of tobacco and how important that was, and as the war was going on, the tobacco rationing was going down. There's a fateful string of days where there's no tobacco to be had for either side, and everyone's just completely on edge. It's a fascinating account. I want to learn so much more about Spain's history. This was a relatively recent event. It's the Spanish Civil War is to this day still an extremely sensitive topic. It wasn't that long ago. Um, so as far as today's culture in Spain, as I know it, um, this is still fresh in the minds of so many people that had parents or grandparents that lived through this. Orwell was this visitor that just joined in, and tells us this amazing account. And he didn't get out scot-free. He did get shot. There's this nightmarish episode. It's just horrifying. He gets shot in the throat, straight through, front to back. Lives through it, but was never the same person. Was never the same man. Even today, let alone whatever sort of medical repair they could do on the lines and things like that. But yeah, you got shot in the throat. Living through this, actually, compared to so many people, he got off pretty well. The book is uneven, probably because of my lack of knowledge, just the little bit that I know, and so the personal accounts are just so interesting, so fascinating. And Orwell has such a great writing style, such a great voice. He's articulate and really understands how to treat these details. What little things are important to give you the feeling of what it was like. He was also an astute observer, recognizing that in order to tell the story, he needed to go more into depth. And so the chapters that He goes into the political aspects or um, larger parts of what was going on in the war. Um, not that they're worse or not as interesting. It was a little dense and a little bit harder, at least to read and then try to articulate as I'm speaking right now. Um, and I bookmarked something which I actually forgot what it even was, but I'm going to end with reading just some passage. I'll have to. I should have. Um, so let's see. Um, when we went on leave, I had been 115 days in the line, and at that time, this period seemed to me to have been one of the most futile of my whole life. I had joined the militia in order to fight against fascism, and as yet I had scarcely fought at all, had merely existed as a sort of passive object, doing nothing in return for my rations except to suffer from cold and lack of sleep. Perhaps that is the fate of most soldiers in most wars. But now that I can see this period in perspective, I do not altogether regret it. I wish, indeed, that I could have served the Spanish government a little more effectively. But from a personal point of view, from the point of view of my own development, those first 3 or 4 months that I spent in the line were less futile than I had thought. They formed a kind of interregnum in my life, quite different from anything that had gone before and perhaps anything that is to come. And they taught me things that I could not have learned in any other way. Beautiful and powerful. Orwell is just a clean writer, astute. His powers of observation, small and large, are impressive. So, Homage to Catalonia, a first-hand account of Orwell's time fighting during the Spanish Civil War at the beginning of the 20th century. Let me know if you've read it. Let me know what else you like by Orwell. Anything that you would like to say. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment if you would like, and take care. Thank you. Bye.